The alarm bells rang across the Imperial monitoring station like angry metal birds screaming in the void. Captain Hyan Wu jumped from his chair and ran to the main control panel where red lights flashed in patterns that made his stomach feel cold. The readings on the screen made no sense at all, and he stared at them with wide eyes that refused to believe what they were showing him. This cannot be right, Hyan Wu said to himself, while his hands moved quickly over the controls. The energy signature was massive and powerful beyond anything he had ever seen before. It was bigger than their largest battleship and stronger than their best weapons combined. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was that the signature matched something from the old databases, something that should not exist anymore. Min-Ah sat at her sensor station with sweat running down her face even though the room was cold. She had checked her equipment 3 times already and everything was working perfectly. The readings were real, and they were coming from something that was moving through space faster than anything should be able to move. Her fingers danced across the controls as she tried to get more information, but the signal kept changing and shifting like a ghost in the darkness. "Captain," Mina called out with a voice that shook just a little. "The readings are getting stronger. Whatever this thing is, it is getting closer to us." Admiral Tae-jin walked into the control room with heavy steps that echoed against the metal walls. He was a big man, with gray hair and scars on his face from many battles. He had fought against the humans 30 years ago during the Great Purge, and he remembered how weak they were back then. Their ships were small and slow, and their weapons could barely scratch the paint on Imperial vessels. The idea that humans could build something like this was crazy talk. "Show me these readings," Tae-jin said as he moved to stand behind Minah's chair. His eyes looked at the screen and his face became very serious. The numbers were impossible, but they were there in bright green letters that could not be ignored. "Sir," Minah said quietly, "the computer systems are saying this is a human vessel, but that cannot be right. All the humans were destroyed in the war. We made sure of that." Tae-jin felt something cold move through his chest like ice water. He remembered the reports from 30 years ago. Every human colony had been found and destroyed. Every human ship had been hunted down and blown to pieces. The humans had been weak and desperate, and they had died easily. There should be no humans left alive anywhere in the galaxy. "Run the scan again," Tae-jin ordered. "Check every system twice. This must be some kind of mistake." But the scans kept showing the same thing over and over again. Somewhere out in the darkness of space, there was a ship that was bigger and more powerful than anything the Empire had ever built. The ship was moving through hyperspace using technology that the Empire's best scientists said was impossible. And according to every test they could run, it was definitely human. Communications Officer Dongmin tried to contact the mysterious ship but got no response at all. The vessel was completely silent on all radio frequencies. It was like trying to talk to a ghost that could not hear or did not want to answer. Dongmin sent signals in every language he knew, including old human languages from the databases, but nothing came back except empty silence. Lieutenant Commander Jin-ho studied the flight path data with growing worry. The unknown ship was not wandering around randomly like a lost vessel would do. It was making precise course corrections and moving with purpose toward something specific. The calculations showed that it was heading directly toward the outer rim territories where the Empire had some of its newest colonies. "Sir," Jin-ho said as he turned toward the Admiral, "if this ship continues on its current path, it will reach the Kepler system in less than 6 hours. We have 3 colonies there and a small defensive fleet." Tae-jin felt his hands become fists without him thinking about it. The Kepler system was important to the Empire because it had rare minerals that were needed for their best weapons. If something happened to those colonies, it would be very bad for everyone involved. But more than that, if this really was a human ship, then it meant the Empire had made a terrible mistake 30 years ago. "Contact Fleet Command immediately," Tae-jin ordered. "Tell them we have a code black situation developing. Unknown vessel of massive size approaching Imperial territory, possibly hostile." The next few minutes passed like hours as messages flew back and forth between the monitoring station and the main Imperial fleet. Officers who had been sleeping were woken up and called to emergency meetings. Ships that had been on routine patrols were ordered to change course and head toward the Kepler system as fast as they could travel. But even as the Empire began to respond to the threat, the unknown ship kept moving through space, like it owned the entire galaxy. Its energy signature grew stronger and stronger, until it was like a burning star on their sensors. Whatever kind of engines it was using were more advanced than anything in the Imperial databases. Minna continued to monitor the approaching vessel, with growing amazement and fear. The ship was not just big, it was built using principles that she could not understand. Its hull seemed to be made of materials that could absorb and redirect energy in ways that should not be possible. The weapon signatures were unlike anything she had ever seen before, and the defensive systems appeared to be stronger than the shields on an entire Imperial battle group. "Captain," Minna said, with a voice that was barely above a whisper, "I think we need to evacuate this station. If that ship decides to attack us, there is nothing we can do to stop it." Hyun-woo looked around the control room at all the people who were working frantically to understand what was happening. These were good people who had served the Empire faithfully for many years. They did not deserve to die because of mistakes that had been made long before they were even born. But evacuation would mean leaving their posts and abandoning their duty to monitor this sector of space. It would mean running away like cowards instead of standing and fighting like proper Imperial officers. Hyun-woo had never run from a battle in his entire life, and he did not want to start now. "We stay," Hyun-woo decided. "We are Imperial officers, and this is our station. We will continue to monitor the situation and report everything we learn to Fleet Command. That is our job, and we will do it no matter what happens." The unknown ship continued to move through space toward the heart of Imperial territory while, behind it, the monitoring station kept tracking its every move. In 6 hours, it would reach the Kepler system, and then everyone would learn if the impossible had truly happened. The humans that the Empire thought it had destroyed forever might have returned from the dead with weapons and technology that could change everything. The space around the Kepler system looked peaceful and quiet until the fabric of reality tore open like someone had cut through black cloth with a burning knife. The hyperspace window expanded into a circle of twisted light and energy that hurt to look at directly. From this impossible opening came something that should not have existed. Commander Woo Jin stood on the bridge of his patrol cruiser and watched through the main viewing screen as the largest ship he had ever seen emerged from hyperspace. It was dark gray like storm clouds and covered with weapons that looked like they could crack planets in half. The hull stretched on forever in both directions and seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it back. "All ships maintain distance," Woo Jin ordered into his communications unit. "Do not approach the unknown vessel under any circumstances. We are here to observe and gather information only." His 3 escort ships moved into a wide formation that kept them far enough away to avoid being caught in any weapon blasts but close enough to use their sensors effectively. The crews were nervous, and Woo Jin could hear the fear in their voices over the radio channels. None of them had ever seen anything like the massive ship that now floated in space before them like a sleeping giant. Inside the mysterious vessel, Captain Daeho walked slowly across the bridge while checking the status displays that lined the walls. Everything was working exactly as it should be working. The ship had dropped out of hyperspace precisely where they wanted to be, and all systems were operating at full efficiency. After 30 years of planning and building and preparing, the moment had finally arrived. "Engineering report," Daeho said in a calm voice that showed no signs of excitement or worry. Chief Engineer Boram looked up from her control station, where dozens of screens showed the inner workings of the great ship. The fusion reactors were running smoothly, and the gravity generators were maintaining perfect stability throughout all sections. The quantum field manipulators that made their advanced technology possible were operating within normal parameters. "All systems green, Captain," Boram reported. "The jump drive is cooling down and will be ready for another hyperspace transition in 20 minutes. Weapons and defensive systems are online and ready for immediate use if needed." Navigator Yoon-ji plotted their current position against the star charts and confirmed that they were exactly where they needed to be. The Kepler system had 3 inhabited planets and a small defensive fleet that consisted of older Imperial ships. It was the perfect place to make their presence known without having to fight a major battle right away. "Imperial patrol ships are maintaining position at 15,000 kilometers, Tactical Officer Sung-ho announced. "They appear to be scanning us, but their sensors are not powerful enough to penetrate our hull shielding. They cannot tell what we have inside this ship." Daeho smiled just a little bit at that news. The humans had learned many things during their 30 years of exile, and one of the most important lessons was how to build ships that could not be easily understood by their enemies. Every piece of technology on board was at least 50 years ahead of anything the Empire currently possessed. The Imperial ships kept their distance like frightened animals that had encountered something they could not understand or defeat. Their weapons were pointed in the right direction, but none of them were charging up for an attack. The Imperial commanders were smart enough to know that firing on an unknown vessel of this size would probably be the last mistake they ever made. On the bridge of his patrol cruiser, Commander Wu Jin tried to make sense of the sensor readings that were coming back from the massive ship. The hull appeared to be made of some kind of adaptive metal that could change its properties based on external conditions. The energy signatures were unlike anything in the Imperial databases, and the weapon ports were built using design principles that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. Communications, Wu Jin said to his radio operator. Send a standard identification request on all frequencies. Ask them to state their name, origin, and purpose for being in Imperial space. The radio waves crossed the distance between the two ships in seconds, but no response came back. The massive vessel continued to float silently in space like it was ignoring everything around it. Its running lights were dim and red like the eyes of some giant predator, watching and waiting for the right moment to strike. Back on the human ship, Communications Officer Hye Jin listened to the Imperial request. With amusement, the Empire was trying to use their standard procedures to deal with something that was far beyond their understanding. It was like watching children try to command adults using playground rules that meant nothing in the real world. Should I respond to their message? Hye Jin asked Captain Daeho. Not yet, Daeho replied. Let them wonder and worry for a while longer. Fear and uncertainty will make them more likely to listen when we do finally speak to them. Meanwhile, the Imperial fleet that was racing toward the Kepler system received the first reports about the massive unknown vessel. Fleet Admiral So Hyun read the messages with growing disbelief and anger. The descriptions made the ship sound like something from a nightmare or a fairy tale. No real vessel could be that large or that advanced. This must be some kind of trick, So Hyun told her staff officers. Perhaps it is a holographic projection designed to make us think we are facing something more dangerous than it really is. Or maybe it is a captured Imperial ship that has been modified to look different. Strategic analyst Ye Jin studied the sensor data that had been transmitted from the patrol ships and shook her head slowly. The readings were too consistent and too detailed to be fake. Whatever was sitting in the Kepler system was exactly as large and powerful as the reports claimed it was. Admiral, Ye Jin said carefully, I think we need to consider the possibility that this vessel represents technology that is significantly more advanced than our own. The energy signatures suggest a propulsion system that operates on principles we do not fully understand. So Hyun did not want to hear such talk. The Empire had always been the most technologically advanced civilization in the galaxy. Their ships were the fastest and their weapons were the strongest. The idea that someone else might have surpassed them was impossible to accept. Impossible, So Hyun declared. No one in this galaxy has the knowledge or resources to build something like that. It must be some kind of deception or illusion. But even as she spoke those words, more reports kept coming in from the patrol ships. The massive vessel was real, and it was waiting in Imperial space like it owned the entire system. Its presence was a challenge that could not be ignored and a threat that could not be easily dismissed. Captain Daeho walked to the main viewing port and looked out at the small Imperial ships that were keeping their distance. They reminded him of the ships that had attacked human colonies 30 years ago during the Great Purge. Back then, the humans had been weak and helpless against Imperial technology. But times had changed in ways that the Empire could not imagine. Begin Phase 2 of the operation, Daeho ordered. It is time to show them that the children of Earth have not forgotten what was done to us. The silence in space was broken by a transmission that came from the massive human ship on every frequency that the Imperial vessels could receive. But the message was not in any language that Commander Wu Jin or his crew had ever heard before. It sounded ancient and strange, with words that seemed to flow together like water mixed with music and threat. Communications Officer Jin Su, Wu Jin called to his radio operator. Record everything and send it immediately to Fleet Command. Have the linguistics department analyze every sound and see if they can figure out what language this is. The transmission continued for exactly 3 minutes and 17 seconds before it stopped as suddenly as it had begun. The massive ship returned to its silent waiting while the Imperial patrol vessels struggled to understand what they had just heard. The words had sounded both familiar and completely foreign at the same time. Back at Imperial Fleet Command, Linguistics Officer Young Mi worked frantically with her team of language specialists to decode the mysterious message. They ran the recording through every translation program and compared it against every known language in the Empire's vast databases. What they discovered made Young Mi's hands shake as she prepared her report. The language appears to be based on ancient Earth dialects, Young Mi explained to Admiral Subin over the secure communication channel. But it has been heavily modified with technical terms and concepts that do not exist in our current databases. It will take several hours to complete a full translation. Subin felt something cold move through her chest at those words. Ancient Earth dialects meant only one thing, and that thing was supposed to be impossible. The humans had been completely destroyed 30 years ago during the Great Purge. Every colony had been found and eliminated. Every ship had been hunted down and destroyed. There should be no humans left anywhere in the galaxy. Work faster, Subin ordered. I want a complete translation within 2 hours. This is now the Empire's highest priority. While the Imperial linguists struggled with their impossible task, Captain Deho stood calmly on the bridge of his ship and watched the small patrol vessels through the main viewing screen. The Empire's ships looked exactly like the ones that had attacked human colonies 3 decades ago. The same angular design and the same weapon systems and the same arrogant assumption that they were superior to everything else in the galaxy. Translation. Complete, Captain, Communications Officer He Jin announced. The Imperial Linguistics team has finished decoding our message. Excellent, Deho replied with a small smile. Now transmit the next phase. Use standard Imperial Common Language, this time, so there can be no confusion about what we are saying to them. The second transmission from the human ship was short and clear, and delivered in perfect Imperial Common Language with no accent or mistakes. The voice that spoke was calm and confident, and carried undertones of barely controlled anger that had been building for 30 years. Attention Imperial forces. The message began. This is Captain Deho of the human vessel Indomitable Dawn. The children of Earth have returned to reclaim what was stolen from us. We remember everything that was done to our people and our worlds. We have not forgotten and we have not forgiven. Commander Wu Jin listened to those words with growing horror as their meaning became clear. The massive ship in front of him was not just unknown, it was human. But humans were supposed to be extinct. The Empire had made sure of that during the Great Purge when every human settlement had been located and destroyed. This cannot be real, Wu Jin said to himself, but his sensors were telling him that it was very real indeed. The ship was there and it was huge and it was definitely of human origin, according to every test his equipment could run. The message continued with technical specifications that made Wu Jin's blood turn cold. The human ship was 3 times larger than the Empire's biggest battlecruiser. Its hull was made of adaptive metamaterials that could redistribute energy from weapon impacts across the entire surface. The propulsion system used controlled gravitational singularities to achieve speeds that Imperial ships could not match. Our defensive systems operate on principles that your scientists declared impossible, the message explained. Our weapons can crack planets, and our shields can withstand the combined firepower of your entire fleet. This is what 30 years of preparation and determination can accomplish when survival is the only option. Back at Fleet Command, Admiral Subin read the translation with hands that would not stop shaking. The technical specifications were beyond anything the Empire currently possessed, and the implications were terrifying. If the humans had really survived the Great Purge and spent 3 decades building advanced technology, then the balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted dramatically. Intelligence Officer Jae Sung burst into Subin's office with files and data tablets clutched in his arms like precious treasures. His face was pale and his eyes were wide with the shock of discovery. "Admiral," Jae-sung gasped as he tried to catch his breath. I have been reviewing surveillance reports from the past 20 years. There have been anomalous activities in 17 different dead space systems. Energy signatures that appeared and disappeared without explanation. Resource shipments that went missing in transit. Construction materials that were purchased through shell companies and never delivered to their supposed destinations. Subin felt her stomach drop as she realized what Jae-sung was telling her. The humans had not just survived. They had been actively building and preparing while staying hidden from Imperial detection. Every mysterious incident and unexplained disappearance over the past 2 decades had been part of a massive construction project. How many ships? Subin asked in a whisper. Unknown, Jae-sung replied. But based on the resource requirements, for building something like the vessel currently in the Kepler system, there could be dozens of them, maybe more. The thought of dozens of human ships with technology superior to anything the Empire possessed was enough to make Subin reach for the emergency communications unit that would connect her directly to the Emperor himself. This was no longer a local threat that could be handled by regional commanders. This was a crisis that threatened the very existence of the Galactic Empire. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Indomitable Dawn, Captain Dae-ho received reports from his sensor operators about Imperial fleet movements throughout the sector. Ships were converging on their position from multiple directions, but they were still hours away from arriving. The Empire was reacting exactly as the humans had predicted they would react. Phase 3 is ready for implementation, Tactical Officer Sung-ho announced. All systems are charged and standing by for your orders. Begin the demonstration, Dae-ho commanded. It is time to show the Empire exactly what they are dealing with. The human ship began to change before the eyes of the watching Imperial crews. Its hull sections rearranged themselves into new configurations, while weapon ports opened like flowers blooming in the darkness. Energy readings spiked to levels that should have been impossible to achieve and maintain. The vessel was transforming, from a simple transport into something that looked like it could fight every ship in the Imperial fleet at the same time. Commander Wu Jin watched this transformation with fascination and terror. His tactical computers were showing weapon signatures that exceeded anything in their databases. The human ship had just revealed that it was not just large and advanced, it was also armed with technology that could potentially destroy entire fleets. All ships retreat to minimum safe distance, Wu Jin ordered. Do not take any action that could be interpreted as hostile. We are completely outmatched here. Fleet Admiral Kyung-ho arrived at the Kepler system with 12 of the Empire's most powerful heavy cruisers, just as the morning sun of the system's primary star began to illuminate the massive human vessel. He had served in the Imperial Navy for 43 years and had never seen anything that matched the size and obvious power of the ship that floated before him, like a dark mountain in space. All ships assume attack formation, Kyung-ho commanded from his flagship's bridge. We will demonstrate to these human survivors that the Galactic Empire does not negotiate with terrorists or ghosts from the past. The 12 Imperial cruisers moved into a perfect combat formation that had been used successfully in hundreds of battles across the galaxy. Each ship was armed with plasma cannons capable of melting through the thickest armor plating, antimatter torpedoes that could destroy entire city blocks, and quantum disruptors that could tear apart matter at the molecular level. Target the center section of the enemy vessel, Kyung-ho ordered. All ships fire on my command. We will concentrate our entire firepower on a single point and punch through whatever defenses they might have. The weapons officers on all 12 ships charged their systems to maximum power while targeting computers locked onto the human vessel's central hull section. The combined firepower they were about to unleash was enough to destroy a small moon or reduce an entire enemy fleet to glowing debris. Captain Dae-ho watched the Imperial ships arrange themselves for attack through his main viewing screen and felt no fear or concern at all. He had expected this reaction from the Empire because their commanders were predictable and arrogant. They always believed that overwhelming firepower could solve any problem they encountered. Weapons Officer Mi-kyung, Dae-ho said in a calm voice, prepare to demonstrate our defensive capabilities. Do not raise the primary shields. I want them to see exactly what our hull can withstand. Mi-kyung nodded and made the necessary adjustments to their defensive systems. The Indomitable Dawn would absorb the incoming attack using only its secondary defensive grid while the quantum field generators redistributed the energy across the entire ship structure. It would be an impressive light show, but would cause no actual damage. All Imperial vessels, this is your final warning. Deho transmitted on the general communication frequency. Stand down your weapons and withdraw to a safe distance. We do not wish to destroy you, but we will defend ourselves if attacked. Fleet Admiral Kyung-ho laughed when he heard that transmission. The idea that a single ship, even one as large as the human vessel, could threaten 12 Imperial heavy cruisers was completely ridiculous. The humans had always been weak, and that weakness had led to their destruction 30 years ago. Ignore their threats, Kyung-ho told his fleet. All ships, open fire immediately. Show these human pretenders what happens when they challenge the might of the Galactic Empire. The 12 Imperial cruisers fired their weapons simultaneously, and the space around the human ship exploded into a brilliant display of destructive energy. Plasma bolts struck the hull like burning spears, while antimatter torpedoes detonated against the armor plating in flowers of annihilation. Quantum disruptors tore at the molecular structure of the target, trying to rip it apart from the inside. But instead of being destroyed or even damaged, the human ship absorbed every bit of energy from the massive attack. The hull plating glowed briefly with absorbed power before the quantum field generators redirected that energy into harmless light patterns that danced across the surface like aurora displays on a planetary atmosphere. Impossible, Kyung-ho whispered, as he stared at the completely undamaged human vessel. Nothing can withstand that much concentrated firepower. The attack had been the equivalent of trying to destroy a mountain with firecrackers. The human ship had not even bothered to raise its primary defensive shields, because its passive armor was already stronger than anything the Imperial weapons could overcome. 30 years of technological development had given humanity capabilities that the Empire could not understand or match. Defensive demonstration complete, Captain Deho announced to the Imperial fleet. As you can see, your weapons cannot harm us. Now we will show you what our weapons can do. The human ship's weapon ports opened wider, and energy readings spiked, to levels that made the Imperial sensors scream warnings about imminent overload conditions. But instead of firing at the Imperial ships, the indomitable Dawn turned its weapons toward an uninhabited asteroid that was floating nearby. A single beam of focused energy lanced out from the human ship and struck the asteroid, which was roughly the size of a small city. The rock simply ceased to exist. It did not explode or break apart or melt. One moment it was there, and the next moment there was nothing but empty space where it had been floating for millions of years. The Imperial crews watched this demonstration with horror and disbelief. Their most powerful weapons could have broken that asteroid into smaller pieces or melted portions of it, but they could never have made it disappear completely. The human weapon had somehow converted the entire mass of the asteroid into pure energy and scattered it across the cosmos. That asteroid contained approximately 50 billion tons of matter, Captain Deho explained to the stunned Imperial fleet. Our weapons can achieve complete matter conversion at the molecular level. Your ships each mass approximately 2 million tons. Do the mathematics yourselves. Fleet Admiral Kyung-ho felt his hands begin to shake as he realized what the human captain was telling him. If their weapons could completely destroy 50 billion tons of solid rock, then his entire fleet could be eliminated in seconds, without any chance of defense or escape. All ships, Kyung-ho ordered, in a voice that barely stayed steady. Withdraw to maximum sensor range immediately. Do not make any aggressive movements or take any actions that could be interpreted as hostile. But as the Imperial ships began their retreat, something even more terrifying happened. The space around 17 different star systems began to shimmer and tear as hyperspace windows opened simultaneously across hundreds of light years. From each opening emerged another human ship identical to the indomitable Dawn. Commander Hana monitored the communications channels from her position at Imperial Fleet headquarters and listened with growing panic as reports flooded in from across the Empire's territory. Human vessels were appearing everywhere at once in a coordinated operation that must have taken years to plan and execute. How many? Admiral Subin demanded as she read the incoming reports. 57 confirmed contacts so far, Hana replied, with a voice that shook despite her attempts to stay professional. all identical to the vessel in the Kepler system, all demonstrating the same advanced technology and superior firepower. Subin realized that the Empire was not facing a single rogue human ship, or even a small group of survivors. They were confronting an entire human fleet that had been built in secret over 3 decades. Every ship represented technology that was generations ahead of anything the Empire possessed. The psychological impact on Imperial forces was immediate and devastating. Crews who had always believed in their technological superiority suddenly found themselves facing enemies that could destroy them without effort. Morale collapsed as word spread through the fleet that human weapons could make entire ships disappear, just like the asteroid. "Contact the Emperor immediately," Subin ordered. "Tell him that we are not dealing with human refugees or survivors. We are facing a fully developed interstellar civilization that has been preparing for this moment since the day we tried to destroy them." Captain Deho received similar reports from the other human ships as they took positions throughout Imperial space. Every vessel had encountered the same pattern of Imperial aggression followed by shock and retreat. The Empire's commanders were finally beginning to understand that the galaxy's balance of power had shifted completely. "All human vessels report successful positioning," Communications Officer Hiejin announced. "Phase 4 is ready for implementation. On your command." Deho nodded and opened a channel that would broadcast his message to every Imperial ship and station within 50 light-years of Earth. It was time to make the Empire's leaders understand exactly what they were dealing with, and what choices they now faced. "This is Captain Deho speaking to all Imperial forces," he began. "You now know that humanity survived your attempt to destroy us. You have seen that our technology surpasses yours in every category. You understand that we can eliminate your entire fleet without losing a single ship. The question now is whether you choose to fight and die or negotiate and live." Emperor Sangwoo sat on his golden throne in the heart of the Imperial Palace and read the reports that kept arriving from across his crumbling empire. Each message brought worse news than the last, and he could feel his absolute power slipping away like water through his fingers. The humans that his forces had supposedly destroyed 30 years ago had returned with technology that made his greatest battleships look like children's toys. "This is impossible," Sangwoo declared to his advisors who stood nervously around his throne. The Great Purge was complete and thorough. Every human colony was found and eliminated. Every human ship was hunted down and destroyed. There should be no humans left alive in this galaxy. But the evidence was undeniable and growing stronger with each passing hour. 57 human warships had appeared simultaneously across Imperial space in a coordinated operation that demonstrated planning and resources far beyond anything the Empire had imagined possible. Each vessel was armed with weapons that could destroy planets and protected by defensive systems that made them virtually indestructible. "Your Imperial Majesty," Intelligence Director Yunsik said carefully, "we have discovered evidence that suggests the humans have been preparing for this moment since the day the Great Purge began. They evacuated their populations to hidden locations and spent 3 decades building this fleet in secret." Sangwoo felt rage building inside him like molten metal. The idea that primitive humans could have outsmarted the Empire's intelligence services for 30 years was humiliating beyond belief. His ancestors had conquered half the galaxy using superior technology and military might. The Empire was supposed to be unstoppable and eternal. "Contact their leader," Sangwoo ordered. "Tell them that the Emperor himself wishes to negotiate from a position of strength. Remind them that we still hold human settlements and civilians as hostages. They will surrender or watch their own people die." But Captain Deho's response to the Emperor's threat was swift and devastating. Instead of negotiating or showing fear, the human captain demonstrated exactly why the Empire's hostages were worthless as bargaining tools. 3 uninhabited Imperial worlds on the outer rim suddenly developed massive cracks that ran from pole to pole, like the planets were eggs being broken open by giant hands. "Those 3 worlds are completely uninhabited," Deho explained in his transmission to the Emperor. "We selected them specifically to show you what our planetary bombardment systems can accomplish without harming any civilian populations. If you threaten human civilians, we will demonstrate these same weapons on Inhabited Imperial worlds, the crack patterns on the three worlds were perfect and precise, showing that the human weapons could target specific locations with mathematical accuracy. The message was clear. The humans could crack any planet they chose, and there was nothing the Empire could do to stop them. Admiral Chang Min watched the footage of the cracked worlds with horror and disbelief. He had served the Empire for 50 years and had seen the devastation that their most powerful weapons could inflict on enemy targets. But nothing in the Imperial arsenal could crack entire planets with such precision and control. "Your Majesty," Chang Min said to the Emperor, "I recommend that we negotiate immediately. The humans have demonstrated technological superiority that we cannot match. Continued resistance will only result in the complete destruction of the Empire." Sang Woo did not want to hear such words from one of his most trusted admirals, but the evidence was impossible to ignore. The human fleet could destroy every Imperial ship and crack every Imperial world without losing a single vessel. The Empire's military might was suddenly as obsolete as stone axes against laser rifles. Chief Diplomat Ji Wan, aboard the Indomitable Dawn, prepared the formal terms that would be offered to the Empire. The humans did not seek conquest or revenge, despite having every justification for both. They wanted something far simpler and far more reasonable: recognition of their right to exist and compensation for the genocide that had been attempted against them. "The terms are as follows," Ji Wan announced in a transmission that reached every Imperial leader simultaneously. "Complete withdrawal of all Imperial forces from any system within 50 light-years of Earth. Formal recognition of human sovereignty over all territory within that sphere. Reparations equal to twice the economic value of everything that was destroyed during the Great Purge." The terms were surprisingly moderate, considering the overwhelming advantage that the humans now possessed. They could have demanded the dissolution of the Empire or the execution of its leaders, but instead they were asking only for space to rebuild their civilization and compensation for past wrongs. "The alternative," Ji Wan continued, "is the systematic dismantling of the Galactic Empire one world at a time. We have the capability to crack every planet you control, and the patience to do it slowly if necessary. The choice is entirely yours." Emperor, Sang Woo realized that he had no choice at all. The Empire could fight and be completely destroyed, or it could negotiate and survive in a reduced form. Pride and arrogance had led to this moment, but common sense demanded that he choose survival over destruction. "Admiral Chang Min," Sang Woo said with a voice that sounded older than his years, "you will serve as my representative in negotiations with the human fleet. Accept their terms and sign whatever documents they require. The Empire will comply with their demands." The Treaty of Restoration was signed aboard the Indomitable Dawn exactly 72 hours after the human fleet had first appeared in Imperial space. Admiral Chang Min put his signature on documents that formally ended the Empire's expansion and established humanity as an equal power in galactic politics. Captain Dae-ho stood in the ship's conference room and watched as the Imperial Admiral signed away 50 star systems and acknowledged human sovereignty over a significant portion of the galaxy. It was a moment that 30 years of preparation and sacrifice had made possible. "The children of Earth have returned," Dae-ho said quietly as he witnessed the signing ceremony. "We survived the attempt to destroy us, and we have grown stronger than anyone imagined possible. The galaxy will never again underestimate the determination of humanity." As the Imperial fleets began their withdrawal from the systems now claimed by the Human Confederation, the balance of galactic power shifted permanently. The Empire remained large and influential, but it was no longer the supreme authority it had once been. A new player had entered the galactic stage with technology and capabilities that demanded respect. The monitoring stations that had first detected the human ships now tracked their movements as they established patrol routes and defensive positions throughout their new territory. The vessels that had seemed impossible when they first appeared were now recognized as the foundation of humanity's return to the stars. Captain Dae-ho looked through the main viewing port of his ship toward the distant star that was Earth's sun. 30 years ago, human refugees had fled into the darkness carrying nothing but their determination to survive and their refusal to surrender. Today, those same refugees had returned as the commanders of the most advanced fleet in the galaxy. The Empire had learned a lesson that would echo through history. Never underestimate a species fighting for its survival. Humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology or their weapons. It had always been their absolute refusal to give up, even when the entire galaxy declared them extinct. That strength had transformed a scattered group of refugees into a galactic superpower, and the stars themselves would remember what the children of Earth had accomplished.